Coming up, Dbacks dropped the first game of the series to the LA Dodgers. And how did the Pittsburgh Pirates win a game despite being no hit? Discussing all that for you next.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. I'm your host, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24downmyportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. If you want to see more content by me, just follow me on Twitter, of course, at CreatorThomas24 from my personal account, or just look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free and available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. As I mentioned in the open, we're going to be talking to Sully Baseball about that Reds versus Pittsburgh Pirates game because somehow the Pirates won a game despite being no hit. So it was just a crazy outcome of a game. So Sully Baseball and I are going to be discussing that in part two. The past two pods, they've kind of just been two-part pods because the Monday pod I do with Sully, we usually record for 45 minutes. We do like 3-segment, 45-minute long podcasts. So the segment on the Pirates versus Reds, it's like 15 minutes long. I'm not going to cut that in half. So that's why you're getting like 2-segment pods the last couple of days, if you guys were wondering, because typically we do 3-segment pods around here, but it's just been easier to do 2 segments with the way I recorded with Sully Baseball. So you're going to hear that Pirates and Reds conversation next. But first, I need to discuss the Dbacks game against the LA Dodgers because they dropped the first game of the series 5-4, as you guys probably already know. And it was the kind of game that gets me scared as a Dbacks fan and supporter. It gets me scared that maybe they're falling back into their old habits. I don't want to discuss that just yet. I don't want to talk like that just yet. But the D-backs are now 500 on the season, if you can believe that, because they scuffled against the Chicago Cubs, dropping 2 of 3. And now they dropped the first game of the series against the LA Dodgers. And now they got a big test coming tomorrow because they have a doubleheader against the LA Dodgers. And if you go 0-2 in that doubleheader and you've dropped to 2 games below 500, that won't look too good after all this momentum you build up. But let's first discuss what's today? Monday? Okay, let's first discuss Monday's loss to the Dodgers because you could put this loss on 3 different phases of the game. The vet, Madison Bumgarner, the rookie, Alek Thomas, and of course, the bullpen. Let's first start with Madison Bumgarner because he was kind of shaky from the outset because even though, despite, a pretty clean first 3 innings, I mean, he didn't allow any earned runs those first 3 innings. I don't think Madison Bumgarner, he did allow 3 earned runs in the game. That was in that 5th inning that counted for Madison Bumgarner. I was wondering if they actually counted that against Madison Bumgarner. I wasn't too sure. If they were just going to give that to Alek Thomas or not and not count that against Madison Bumgarner. But they did give Madison Bumgarner 3 earned runs. And the game started with Madison Bumgarner working through the first 2-3 innings pretty cleanly. But even though you were watching those first 2-3 innings and you're like, Madison Bumgarner is unscathed, I wasn't too confident watching him. I've been confident watching Madison Bumgarner his previous couple starts, but this start against the LA Dodgers, he was giving up a lot of loud and deep contact. Like a lot of those outs were warning track fly balls. And whenever you're seeing that early in the game, that's never a good sign. And they were able to start, they were starting to get to Madison Bumgarner that 4th and 5th inning, especially that 4th inning. Madison Bumgarner really worked the tightrope. I mean, he had allowed the first 2 base runners on in that 4th inning, allowed 2 singles back-to-back. He had 1st and 3rd, 1 out. Somehow was able to make pitches and get out that inning, but was not able to do that in the 5th inning because it started off with a lead-off double, and then after that, it just kind of got away from him, and it wasn't all Madison Bumgarner's fault because Alek Thomas, the other person we have to put a huge amount of blame on, he just misplayed that ball in center field. It was a rocket off the bat of Mookie Betts. It bounced. He just misplayed it, allowed 2 runs to score. And After that, Madison Bumgarner allowed another hit, which allowed another run to score. But you look at those two guys in that inning, and you have to put the blame, I think, for this game on those two people because Madison Bumgarner, even if Alek Thomas tracks that ball down and gets it in cleanly and doesn't have that big miscue, I still think Madison Bumgarner probably gives up a run or two in that fifth inning just because the way he was pitching really wasn't that good overall on the night. I thought he was shaky the whole night. He didn't inspire a lot of confidence in me when I was watching him just because of the contact the Dodgers batters were making, and it all started to unravel in that fourth inning. So even though Alek Thomas misplayed that ball in center field, I still felt like Madison Bumgarner was destined no matter what to give up runs in that fifth inning. But because of the Alek Thomas miscue, we'll never know. And you have to put the blame on both of them because I think Madison Bumgarner was still giving up. He was still giving up hits after that miscue by Alek Thomas, and you have to also put the blame on Alek Thomas for, of course, that error he had in center field. And then after that, you have to put the blame on the bullpen, who have been a big issue for the D-backs this season. I mean, Sean Pop, and what a return from injury because first game back from injury, he goes out there and in a one-run ball game. Yes, it felt like the game was over. Let me talk about that because it felt like the game was over after the fifth inning. It felt like that error by Alek Thomas. My feeling was this game is over. That kind of error is going to be the one that costs you this kind of ball game. And in the end, I guess we were right about that. But what also proceeded to help cost us the ball game was Sean Poppin coming in and just getting shelled immediately, hit after hit, and gave up a 2-run shot to Chris Taylor. Like, it was a 1-run ball game, even though I felt like the game was over after the fifth inning because of how badly the D-backs played and how close I knew the game was going to be. Even though I felt like the game was over after the fifth, it was still a 1-run ball game. But Sean Poppin decided to change that when he gave up a 2-run shot. And now the D-backs were down 3 runs, and it officially felt like the game was over after that. I know already felt like that after the fifth inning. It officially felt like that after the Sean Poppin debacle. D-backs had a mini rally in the ninth inning with David Peralta 2-run shot. I was literally clicking record to start the post-game podcast right before it, literally seconds before that David Peralta shot. And then I decided to keep watching just because you never know. Once it's a 1-run ball game in the ninth inning with the D-backs, anything is possible. Maybe if Sean Papa doesn't give up that 2-run shot, maybe the D-backs end up winning this game 4-3, but you can't say that. It's hard to say. And you also have to blame the offense. That's the other part. We said the starting pitching of Madison Bumgarner wasn't that great. We said we had defensive miscues by Alek Thomas, the bullpen, but also let me add a fourth phase that we have to blame, which is the offense, which has been terrible for the whole season. I mean, Ketel Marte was great tonight. Ketel Marte has been hot for 2+ weeks now. Ketel Marte, his numbers are insane over the last 15 days. Christian Walker as well. He's batting over 300 with like a 900 OPS over the last 15 days as well. He had a solo shot in this game, as he always does, because there's never anyone on the bases when Christian Walker hits a home run. But outside of that, the D-backs got a whole lot of nothing. They got 5 hits on the night, 11 strikeouts, another game with double-digit strikeouts, and of course, 0 for 2 with runners in scoring position. Usually they're like 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. They weren't even able to do that tonight. Tony Gonsolin was working the slider inside to lefties all night, and the D-backs batters could do absolutely nothing with it. Now the D-backs have a huge test, as I mentioned earlier, tomorrow in the doubleheader against the Dodgers, because you do not want to go 0 for 2 in a doubleheader and drop 2 games below 500, because then you start building that negative momentum once again. Like I said to start the pod, I don't want the D-backs getting back into their old habits. Their old habits scare me, and I feel like they could be falling back into their old ways. So let's at least split it against the Dodgers tomorrow so we can maintain being a 500 team, and I would be happy with that. We got Tyler Gilbert in game 1 tomorrow. He's been a very effective starter throughout his major league career. He only has around 10 starts under his belt, but he's got like a 3.4 ERA during those 10 starts. And then you got Merrill Kelly in game 2. So the D-backs are going to have quality starters on the mound tomorrow against the LA Dodgers. Don't know who's going in that first game for the LA Dodgers. I think Tyler Anderson is starting the second game, but huge test for the D-backs tomorrow. They have to split the series, and I'm hoping they get it done, because if not, I'm scared the D-backs could fall back into their old habits.